Hey, how's it going, folks? It's Abdullah.
And Bean.
And welcome back for another episode of Great Moments in Weed History. Whew! We are still catching our breath from this past 420. What an epic day it was. We really hope you enjoyed our live episode about the life and times of Jack Herer, rhymes with terror, which we dropped on the morning of 420. It's a really important piece of cannabis history, and we're really proud to have been able to tell it in front of a live studio audience, and then, of course, subsequently to all of you. And now we find ourselves on another Weedness Day. It's here again already. So this week's episode is actually going to be a little bit different. But before we get to that, Bean, my man, what did you do this past 420?
I was in New York City on 420, and I gotta say, being in Washington Square Park and getting blazed with thousands of people in a newly liberated city, in a park where so many people have gotten hassled and busted over the years, and it was just a weed free-for-all. One of the best 420 memories of my life. Being back in a city where I was arrested, where so many people have been arrested for weed, and to see this bohemian park, the center of Greenwich Village, acting as a center of culture and public assemblage with weed everywhere. It was just fantastic. Shout out to everybody in the Baked Apple. Later that night, got to go to a Weed Maps party. Shout out to our friends there. Leafly party. Big shout out to them, and even a weed feed dinner. So 420 in NYC was absolutely lit. And the next day, my home state, your former residency of New Jersey, opened its weed store. So an incredible weed week since we last checked in.
Yeah, wow. The East Coast has really transformed since I last was there. I was a criminal when I was last there. So, it's really amazing to hear that because, I spent so many years in New York hiding and smoking cannabis. And though late to the party, I'm very glad the Big Apple is being smoked out of now. You know what I'm saying? It's been tunneled through by a paper-made pen of justice and packed with a bowl of freedom. And the smoke ignited and pulled all the way through, thereby infusing the entire apple. Do not eat that apple. Great Moments in Weed History does not recommend actually eating the apple you smoke out of. Although, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe that's a great moment to be,
It'll probably get you high. Those brown parts are not oxidation. That is resin. And, of course, the best thing about an apple pipe in Prohibition land, and shout out to all of you who spent one more 420 in Prohibition land. We're with you. We know you got high anyway. You can eat an apple pipe. You can literally eat the evidence.
And it's actually decarbed, so it'll probably get you high, too. You know what I mean? More so than it would if you were just eating the weed or the apple itself. So there we go. A great moment just happened. We just invented a way to get even higher off of your apple pipe.
And how was your 420, my friend?
My 420 was incredibly hectic, as it usually is, but this time in a slightly different way. So I went down to Green Street, which is where we recorded the live episode that we dropped on 420, and I hung out with a bunch of friends. And it was just a sort of, indulgent day, right? Well, we just got lit and had a few laughs and kicked it. There was a party at the building, so I basically was there all day until 420, and then we got super, super baked, right? Everybody yelled and screamed and lit up something fat.
Woo, 420!
Yeah, exactly. You catch the vibe, right? You understand what I'm talking about. At 4:30, 10 minutes after the moment, right? I actually dipped out because another event that has nothing to do with cannabis happened to be scheduled on 420, and that was the premiere of the Paramount Plus show, The Offer, which my fiancée, Allie, produced on. It's a 10-episode series about how her dad, Albert S. Ruddy, produced The Godfather. And Al, my soon-to-be father-in-law, is played by Miles Teller. It was just an incredible experience because we went from the biggest day of the year for me to the biggest day of the year for her. I was supporting her throughout it. I was very, very stoned throughout. that party, even though I was in a black suit the entire time. It was so crazy to go from like being just weeded out at Green Street, which is like the new weed hangout in LA, to being at Paramount, this historic Hollywood studio. And, my fiance Allie is like working the room. It was really interesting. It was really different. And I was very, very lit. I'd like to give a special shout out to Podtones, our sometimes sponsor, because that was the sleekest and most discreet way for me to get high at that premiere. And I did. I sucked down an entire chill pen and an entire up pen over the course of the evening. It was a different 420. It was a really good 420. And I got a lot of wonderful messages from a lot of people saying happy 420. And I'm so stoked that I come to mind for people when they think of 420. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure you got messages like that too. So thanks so much if you hit us up to say happy 420. We always appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. That extends to everybody who hit us up in our DMs or, of course, our Patreon family sending us messages there. I got to say, I was a little confused because when you said you were going to the premiere of a film on 420 called The Offer, I thought it was about a weed deal. It was an ounce of OG Kush for $850. The first person to break the $800 barrier, right? It's based on RIP.
And it was an offer that was not refused. Someone paid the $850 for that ounce of OG Kush. It was the only ounce of OG Kush for hundreds of miles, which of course drove up the price. That was the offer in question. But yeah, the show is fantastic. Bean, I think you're really going to like it as a film buff and a fan of old Hollywood. There's definitely a lot of really fun referentialism in there. Shout out Matthew Good, who plays Bob Evans, who I know is a favorite character of ours. And dude, he crushes it. You are really going to love this Bob Evans portrayal. I thought of you when I saw it.
Was I dying to roll up a fatty and watch The Offer? You bet I was. Would it have been better if they let me write, produce, and direct it from the grave? Who can say?
Fucking fantastic. R.I.P. the legend, Bob Evans. If you're out there and you don't have Paramount Plus, get it. Watch this show.
Absolutely. And speaking of offers that you could refuse, some of you refused, some of you very thankfully accepted. Just a quick little update on our Weedathon, which ended on 420. We did not quite make it to our goal of 420 supporters, but I have to say we are really blown away by the support that we did get. We have over 200 supporters now on Patreon, and that is not just helping us make this podcast once a weed on Weedness Day for you, but it is helping us look to the future for some really, really big expansions of the great moments in weed history universe, all because of you, our beloved Patreon supporters who went to greatmomentsinweedhistory.com and joined the fam.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are not yet a part of our Patreon fam, we encourage you to go to greatmomentsinweedhistory.com. Check out the bonuses that we've got for you. If you support us on Patreon, there's a good chance you're watching the video version of this right here. And if you don't have the ducats, help us spread the word on our show by telling interested parties about great moments in weed history. All right, so like we mentioned earlier, today we're going to do things a little bit differently, and we're going to share a special episode from a new podcast that we've really been loving. It's called What's Your Problem? Great title. Each week, host Jacob Goldstein talks to really, really smart people who are facing some of the biggest challenges in modern business. Jacob used to host the Planet Money podcast, and now he's combining his expertise about the money and business worlds with his passion for technology and new ideas. So in the episode you're about to hear, he's joined by Joy and Raft Hollingsworth, the brother and sister team who run the Hollingsworth Cannabis Company. And they have a little problem. How do you help more black people get into the largely white legal weed business? And this is something we've mentioned many times on the show before. The Hollingsworths faced this problem from the very beginning as they tried to start a marijuana farm from scratch in rural Washington. They lived their entire lives in downtown Seattle and did not know anything about farming. All right, so a few things you're gonna hear in this story. A paper bag full of cash, a dinner with Anthony Bourdain, and hundreds of millions of dollars in weed taxes, right? And it'll definitely leave you thinking differently about the business of cannabis. All right, so here's Jacob's conversation with Joy and Raft Hollingsworth. We really hope you enjoy it, and you can hear more of What's Your Problem wherever you find podcasts.
Stay where you are, roll up a joint, split a blunt, pack a bong, and dabulate a dab, and settle in for this truly, truly excellent story from our new friends at What's Your Problem?
What's your problem?
And we'll see you next weed on Weedness Day for another great moment in weed history.
I'm Jacob Goldstein, and this is What's Your Problem, the show where entrepreneurs and engineers talk about the world they're going to build once they solve a few problems. My guests today are Raft and Joy Hollingsworth, the brother and sister team that runs the Hollingsworth Cannabis Company, aka THC Co. Joy and Raft run a farm in Washington state where they grow and sell about $600,000 of marijuana a year. Their problem? How do you help more black people get into the legal weed business? They've been working on this problem for a long time. It started about a decade ago, right after Washington state legalized recreational marijuana, and Joy and Raft decided to start their own weed farm from scratch in rural Washington state, despite having lived their whole lives in downtown Seattle. At the time, their dad had just retired after a career at the Seattle Parks Department, and he put up a big chunk of his retirement savings to fund the farm. Joy and Raft told me, like a lot of entrepreneurs, when they started out, they really didn't know what they were doing.
You got to be a little crazy. You know how they say entrepreneurs, you jump off a cliff and you're going to figure out how to build your plane on the way down. That's what it kind of felt like.
Yeah, and we start driving out, found the property on Craigslist. It was a 6-acre plot of land in Mason County. You know, we see this land, we like it. I say, I'll take it. And the real estate agent, Larry, at the time said, okay, well, meet me at the Mason County title office. Okay, great, Larry. So we go down there, and I had a Safeway bag, like a paper bag full of cash.
Oh my God.
And we're going to pay for this land. And we were so evasive at the time. We didn't want to tell anybody our plans. What do these two black guys from Seattle want with 6 acres off of this private dirt road by the prison? What do they want? It was ridiculous in hindsight, but
I mean, you're telling it as funny, right? But were there any other black people there? Was that scary? Was it fine? How was that part of it?
There's no other black people out there. And the neighbors have been really nice to us to this day. They've been great stewards as neighbors. And
so how did you get from there to here? Right? So you got your farm, you get to know the neighbors.
Chaos.
It
was chaotic. We had a fence, we had cameras, we had a couple of buildings, but the rest was just, we're in the open field. We don't really know what's going on. We're going to grow plants. We're going to grow plants, we're going to grow 4,000 plants in the dirt. We buy dirt from this guy down the road because we heard from a friend that he has good dirt. And it's like landscaping dirt. It's not even dirt you grow plants in. So
you bought the wrong dirt? You bought the wrong dirt? Yeah. That sounds like a problem.
From this guy who paid $7,000. It was a problem. I mean, there was just so many different things. We're freaking out. I moved to the farm. I'm living in the construction trailer that we have, put on the farm as our office space. I'm sleeping in the office. We hire a guy on Craigslist. We hire everybody that first year from Craigslist.
No, Joy, tell me. It's been all Raft so far. Tell me what is that?
I was on mute listening to. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. We're still on year one, and I think you want to get from year one to now.
So, Joy, you pick up the story here. No, I love it. But, Joy, you pick up the story. Get me over the next 9 years here.
I'm listening to year one right now, Jacob, and I'm like, bro, we'll get us to 2021, please.
Okay, Joy, you got it. No, you got it. Joy, this is your moment. I want to hear from you now.
You're good. I'm sorry.
No, I mean it. I mean it. Joy, you tell me the story of the next 9 years.
Raph is right. It was such a learning piece and a learning curve with everything. And it felt like an experiment for year one. And we didn't know what we were doing wrong. We just kind of it just felt like it was this whole entire thing of solving problems, one after the other. So every year it felt like we got better. It just kept continuing to get better and better until that moment, right, in 2017, which I think switched us when we were on and got to have dinner with Anthony Bourdain and crew. And that was really the year that really, put us on the map for so many different reasons.
And just to be clear here, a producer for Anthony Bourdain's CNN show read an article about your farm in a Seattle newspaper. And then a month later, there's a TV crew filming you at the farm and you're having dinner with Anthony Bourdain and you wind up on his show on CNN. What does that do for your business?
Right after that show, all these people hit us up and said, hey, we'd love to buy your product. Can you ship us a pound? I live in Texas. I live in California. It's like, no, that's actually illegal. We can't do that. And so it's hard to monetize that piece when you can't be close to the consumer. But on that branding piece, absolutely. Absolutely. It gave us a lot of credibility in spaces that we weren't really, we didn't know existed.
So let's just talk about the business today, sort of what it is, how it works. I pulled it up on Google Maps on the satellite images one. If you just Google map Hollingsworth Cannabis Company, it comes up and I'm zooming in. But first of all, it is clearly way out in the middle of nowhere, right? It's just trees and farms and what is that? Maybe a creek all around. But if I zoom in more, I can actually see it looks like mostly greenhouses, and that's where you grow the cannabis?
Correct. So we have 8 greenhouses. We have 3 shipping containers, and we just modified them to the buildings, wired and with doors. So they feel like, steel frame buildings. But then we have a converted construction trailer, and that's where we do all the processing. It's renovated, hardwood floors, it's painted. It's nice.
Tell me about the plants.
They're living, breathing beings. They are very much alive. And at one point in time, we'll have 2,100 plants alive, growing. And it's a symphony. It's beautiful.
And they're very resilient, too. A plant could look a hot mess one week, give it a little nutrient, little sunlight, and figure out what's wrong, and it looks like $1 million the next week. So they bounce back really fast. And like Raph said, they're actually living and breathing organisms. We play the music.
What music do you play the plants?
It was 2 straight weeks he was playing gospel music, and I was like, oh, he's going through something right now. That's
no, please.
You okay, man? And then the next week he's playing just, some neo soul music. Now he's good. So it just really depends.
Okay. Are you okay, Raph? You came through it okay?
Yeah, that's accurate.
How is the business doing? Is your dad's life savings safe?
Yeah, when we started, our first order was for $2,000, and it took us, Joy, would it take us 3 weeks to?
Yeah, it was 3 weeks to process it.
That's not a living.
Between 4 people.
You're not going to make a living that way.
No.
So how about now?
We could probably get a $2,000 order out in a day, maybe less. Probably same day.
Annually, more or less, how much do you sell?
About $500,000 to $600,000 wholesale.
Okay.
In marijuana, which equates to 1,200 pounds.
And that's
of marijuana grown and sold.
Gross, right? So that minus your costs is your profit.
Exactly.
And so, there are people in Washington who sell millions of dollars a year, certainly, right?
$1 million a month, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how do you compete? I feel like this is small business lessons here. How do you compete against a business that's more than 10 times your size?
Joy, how do we compete with this? We really have to focus on our brand, what we do better than anyone else.
You asked, Joy, but then you answered. Joy, how do you compete?
There's a demographic and people, they want cheap weed. People like going to Walmart and Costco. But there are people that really value knowing who grew their weed. Who grew their weed? How did they grow it? And then when you can connect to the consumer with that via Instagram, online, story, connecting, building relationships, then they feel like, you know what, I want to be connected to them and I want to support them. I want to support this Black business, this family owned and operated business. And a lot of people have told us they see their family in us. Every time they look at us, they're like, you remind me of my sister, or my mom is, or I love your mom. She smokes. She's really funny. Or your grandmother. She's 101. I love her. We connect people on that family piece. And that's really huge.
You mentioned your mom and your 101-year-old grandmother. Are they part of the business?
They certainly consume part of the business. My mom.
They're part of the cost side, not the revenue side.
Yeah, my mom's a designated tester. We have name tags for everybody, and that's her title.
My kids want to grow up to be ice cream testers. I feel like your mom really hit the jackpot on that one.
Yeah, she does too.
After the break, the problem Joy and Raft are working on now. How do you help more Black people get into the weed business? That's the end of the ads. Now we're going back to the show. Back before weed was legal or quasi-legal, whatever it is now, in America, Black people made up a disproportionate share of the people arrested on marijuana-related charges. Now that weed is legal or quasi-legal, Black people are underrepresented in the marijuana industry. And this is a problem that Joy and Raft are working on now.
We wanted to use our platform of being one of the only Black farmers in the state of Washington, not the only, but one of the few, to use our platform to help bring attention and awareness to that.
Did I read, Raft, that you were on some kind of a state committee that recently changed a rule that was keeping people out of the legal weed business?
Yeah. One of the things that we talked about, amongst a million other things, was this rule that the Liquor and Cannabis Board had that would disqualify you from owning a marijuana business, essentially, if you had a nonviolent drug offense conviction or charge in your past. And they changed that rule finally, which is a step in the right direction, but it is not enough.
And you've also worked on this Washington state law that's addressing some of these social issues, right?
We helped draft the bill, connect with people, help lobby the bill. We were out there testifying. It was a big, heavy lift.
And it passed.
Yeah, we can't take all the credit for it. It was definitely a community push. And the biggest piece is Washington brings in they've brought in over the last 2 years, over $1 billion in tax revenue. And so a lot of those funds, we have been using our platform to try to get those back into neighborhoods, which is important. And how how amazing would it be that these neighborhoods that were torn up by the war on drugs, affected poverty, homelessness, could go back into those communities from cannabis tax dollars and continue to repair those communities with those tax dollars that were generated. I think that is really the goal.
And Jacob, I just want to give a shout out because yesterday the governor came out with his proposed budget and it allocated $125 million for disproportionately impacted groups, community reinvestment from the cannabis tax dollars. I mean, that's a huge, the effects of the bill are going to be felt for generations.
Great. So people are sort of talking about this idea that marijuana might be legalized at the federal level, right? Right now, clearly you're operating in, under all these state rules. What would it mean for your business if we were just legal in America?
Oh my goodness. What would it mean? It would be amazing. Right now we grow 1,200 pounds to 1,500 pounds, depending on the weather, of marijuana. Street, if that was marijuana that we could sell directly to the consumer, whew, can't imagine. I mean, look, 1,000 pounds, convention has kind of put that at $10 a gram. 1 pound is 454 grams. You're talking about $4,500 a pound. If we could produce $4 to $5 million in marijuana, actually $6 million in marijuana every year, it would change dramatically.
Would it also mean you would have to compete against, these giant, even in some cases, publicly traded weed companies that have been kind of building up in Canada and waiting to sweep into the US when marijuana is legalized here?
Yeah, I think we would. But at the end of the day, everyone has to grow the plant. We focused on efficiency in growing it for an environmentally friendly impact. We grow for $9 a day in power. And I don't think anybody really can compete with that in terms of price and economies of scale. Now, obviously, people can produce more marijuana, but I think what we offer that those other companies don't is just that authentic, lovingly produced product that corporate marijuana really can't replicate at that scale.
It's like craft beer, your craft weed.
That's exactly right. We don't produce a lot of it, but what we do produce, we produce it, with love and attention and dedication and service. And we really care about what you experience when you use our product because we put our name on,
So basically, you can't wait until weed is just legal in America.
Me and everybody else.
In a minute, the lightning round, including Joy and Raph's favorite things to do when they smoke and the best and worst things about working with your family. Okay, let's get back to the show. We're going to close with the lightning round. Are you ready? I want you guys both to answer. You can interrupt each other. You can talk over each other. But I want everybody on this one. What's your favorite thing about working with your family?
You can't get fired.
Spending time with my dad and my sister and my mom.
What's your least favorite thing about working with your family?
Same answer.
Joy?
Yeah, the same. I can't fire Raph. If we have a problem, I can't fire him. It's the same answer.
I don't want to presume that you guys smoke weed, but if you do smoke weed, what's your favorite thing to do when you smoke?
I smoke before I go to bed. My favorite thing to do is to sleep.
I don't smoke. I'll take some edibles, and then I like to do design stuff. So some high level stuff because it makes me super creative. So it might be the website, might be some cool pictures, might be a label design, might be some inspiration, that type of thing.
So your answer is work, Joy. Your favorite thing to do when you get high is work.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
It's okay. No, it's great. If you have just like a 10-minute break in the middle of the day, what do you do to relax?
I watch unintentional ASMR videos on YouTube, especially the medical variety. It's my favorite.
Well, like doctors just sort of like rustling little like plastic wrappers as they're doing a surgery or something?
Yeah.
No, my favorite thing is the lymph node check. I'll watch a compilation of that all day. They just like gently touch your lymph nodes around your neck and clavicle.
Do you guys think you'll work on the farm forever?
No, probably not.
How will you know when it's time to go do something else?
When I do not love going to grow plants, there's still that like just pure amazement at the growth week over week where I'm enthralled like a little kid.
Great. Thanks so much to both of you for your time. Thanks for talking to me.
Thank you guys so much for thinking of us. Really.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Joy and Raph Hollingsworth run the Hollingsworth Cannabis Company, THC Co. Today's show was produced by Edith Russillo. It was edited by Robert Smith and Kate Parkinson Morgan and engineered by Amanda K. Wong. I'm Jacob Goldstein, and I'll be back next week with another episode of What's Your Problem?